All right, good afternoon, welcome everybody. My name is Keith Casey. I go by Danger. If you want the reason I have that nickname, we'll have to talk after this, preferably over drinks. But I have been in this, brief agenda, we'll talk about what we do for Compete, how we sort of get there, the mindset that goes behind it, some of the security aspects of it, and how we can detect some of the patterns that we can actually use. I'm not going to go over all the patterns I've discovered in what we're doing, just sort of the top three, but we'll get to those and lay out some of the others. A little bit about myself. Don't worry, this is relevant. I've been a geek. I came to product marketing not through the product side of things, not even through the marketing side of things. I came to it through development. I was a software developer. It was lots of fun. I was building all the cool things people are talking about. At some point I realized that building stuff and talking about what we're building and getting it sold was actually a lot more powerful. So I spent a few years at Twilio doing developer evangelism across most of North America. I went over to Okta and actually was joined up as a developer evangelist, and I realized pretty quickly they weren't ready for that. They weren't ready for a developer-oriented product. So I got shoved over to this product marketing team and kind of had to figure out what was going on. At that point, this was mid-2016. We really didn't have a competitive aspect. We really didn't have all the programs that we know and love today. It was really kind of 3 people on technical marketing, 3 people on product marketing, and we kind of figured out how things worked. That didn't always work. Since then, I left there and I went to Ingrok. You probably have not heard of Ingrok. That's fine, your developers have. We have 6 million developers at this point that are using the platform on a regular basis, about 30,000 customers. But we went over to Ingrok. It's founders of Twilio, founders of Okta, some early people, we all came together and did that. What gets really interesting though is that when they're putting together the team at Ingrok, we chose 2 people from Okta who had done product marketing before, and that was our entire marketing team for the first year. So we were product marketing heavy, which was really good in terms of our messaging. It was really bad in terms of our systems and processes. We'll get to that a little bit later on. So that's who I am in modern times. In ancient times, I worked in the intelligence community in DC. Don't worry, this comes into it. So I am not James Bond. I was never been James Bond. I don't smoke. I don't have the cool car. Not Ethan Hawke, and I'm definitely not Scarlett Johansson, if you hadn't figured that out by now. One of the things that comes from the intelligence community, though, is other than clandestine services, those are the people actually on the field. I was never one of those guys. Their entire job is to collect information and turn around and make it actionable for decision makers. Should sound pretty familiar. We had to be able to find and organize this information from a lot of disparate sources. In some cases, it's from people. In some cases, from open source intelligence, such as like hitting CNN and learning things there. And the key part of it was taking piece A and piece B, that in no logical world are these things connected, and putting them together in a way that made sense. One of the things I learned in the intelligence community is that it's very rare that individual information is classified. It's putting this piece with that piece together gives you enough context to understand, oh, this is what's happening. This is why this thing's important. Which, on that note, whenever there's a big leak and they say, don't worry, there's no classified intelligence in this leak, that's why that's a meaningless statement. Because the puzzle pieces that came from that leak might complete the picture over here that makes the situation dangerous. But I was never out in the field. I supported people who were. When we think about Compete and when we think about like how we collect this information and how we think about things, there's a variety of ways. I looked up, just to make sure I knew what I was talking about here, I looked up the definition of competitive intelligence. This was the least offensive, most interesting. It was the ethical information gathering to inform decisions and mitigate risk. It also happens to be the driest. But when we go into our current approaches frankly are crap. We always feel like we're behind the ball, that we're always catching up with what's going on. We're always backwards looking, trying to figure out, why didn't this thing work? Why didn't we get the result that we were expecting? What happened along the way? And that's because the vast majority of things what we do are all passive. We're just sitting there and we're just trying to have this information hit us. We have tools that monitor websites and they tell us about pricing and packaging changes. Useful, but that's all after the fact. We might get that information, but we're going to get it very late. Think about your own organization. How much effort goes into a pricing change? I hear a couple people mouthing a lot at me. How much effort goes into a messaging change? When you come up with a new go-to-market strategy, how long did it take to go from idea on a whiteboard to updates to a website? Months? Quarters? Easily. When we think about this at scale, this is exceptionally late. We're getting this information, this competitive intelligence, this change in direction from our competitors so late to the fact that anything we do is going to be a very late response. We need to think about how we're shifting these, or how we're thinking about these things. We need to shift our approach, our mindset, because right now we're getting sometimes good information, but we're getting it so late in the process that it's probably not relevant anymore. There's this great Dilbert cartoon that I absolutely love. It says, if we do this work over the next 5 years, we'll catch up with our competitors. And Dilbert says, catch up with our competitors where they are now or where they'll be 5 years from now. Every time it takes us more and more time to process what somebody has done is not time we're actually getting ahead of them. So it comes down to the question of, how can we learn things faster? How can we get in front of those changes? How can we figure out their shots? How can we figure out what they're going to do? And that's where competitive intelligence gets really interesting. There's also some, a very careful line we have to walk here. There's an aspect of ethical information gathering. I'm not advocating doing anything unethical here, okay? There is nothing unethical in this presentation, just to be clear. But, there's a big asterisk here, but there's a lot of things that once you dig into it, you'll say, whoa, wait a minute, I can discover this, I can explore these things, and you're going to start walking down some lines that just please be careful about. So I'm not a lawyer, but please be careful around NDAs. One of the things we always talk about is interviewing customers. You know, we talk about interviewing customers. We even talk about doing loss analysis. At Okta, we went so far as interviewing customers that we lost. So prospects, closed deals that, you know, we had no shot at. Figuring out why, what happened. We're in a very awkward situation a number of times where customers would say, oh, well, here's the contract they gave us. And we're like, the first term is NDA. Like, don't give us a copy of this. We had people going so far as saying, here's the detailed statement of work, here are the pricing, here's all this detail. Be very careful with that information. You probably don't want it. I mean, you do, but you don't. Fundamentally, we do, deep down inside, we want that information. We'd love to know exactly how much our competitors discounted this deal to get it. But fundamentally, we need to stay away from that. Or at least if you use it, don't document it. Part of that is also use your own real information. So a lot of us, hopefully, sign up for competitors' websites. We sign up for competitors' projects and products, and we play with it to understand, how does this work? What do they do better than us? What do they do differently than us? Is that a good approach? Use your real information. We actually talked to corporate counsel on this, and they said, well, one of the things that always comes into play here is, it's mens rea is the Latin term for it, is, was there an intent to cause harm or an intent to deceive? If you fill out false information, there is very clearly evidence of an intent to deceive, okay? So I would say, at any time, if what you're doing involves a climbing harness, you've probably gone too far, okay? But there's really an upside of using your own information. What's the worst possible thing that can happen? You sign up for your competitor's website and you use your real information, maybe a personal email account instead of your corporate email account. And what happens? What's the worst thing? Anybody? They take you out of their list. What's the best thing that can happen? They don't. No, actually, there's something better than that. There's something way better than that. Ooh, they invite you to join your cab. Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't considered that one. Come on, the worst case and the best case scenarios are still pretty okay. But I'd say there's one even better one. In early 2016, Okta was a sponsor for a Microsoft event, and this happened. Microsoft actually banned Okta from participating in their events. And to read the subhead here, Okta joins the ranks of Amazon and Google as the only companies to be banned from the September Ignite Tech event. At this point, Okta was 500 people. Who won in this battle? Okta. Okta blew the doors off. They sent out press releases on this. Because Microsoft considers you the same as Amazon and Google. That's kind of cool. This is a full year before the IPO. This is gold. Okay, so use your real information. Maybe you're not your corporate email address. That makes sense. But use your real information, because the worst thing that can happen can actually be the most glorious, wonderful thing of all. And if this happens, please tag your PR people immediately, because there's lots of fun things you can do with this. All right, but to actually get back on point, when we talk about how we're collecting information and where we're collecting information, who are my security people in the room? Couple, all right, spread out. What's the number one risk to organizations? Data, no, not quite. What's number one risk to organizations? People. People is the number one security threat to any organization, because odds are the way they got their data was through the people. They had their password stolen, they had their credential phished, they had all these things happen. Well, you know what? In competitive intelligence, the number one threat is also people. And so that's because we talk. We love talking. As marketers, we love talking, right? What's our job? Talking. Our job is messaging. Our job is to put information out there. And we talk about all kinds of things. We obviously talk about ourselves, right? We want to talk about that. We get up in front of industry events and we talk about what the state of the industry is, what the big trends are. And if you look at somebody's presentation on what the trends are in the industry, you can probably make some educated guesses on what they're going to do about it. And in fact, they may leak some details. They talk about customers. You know, I was talking with a few people here today, and I'm not allowed to name a customer, but I say they're a large company, coffee company in the US with 10,000 locations. I'm not allowed to name them, but I think you probably have a couple educated guesses on who that could be. We all say things like this. We leak details about our organization that legally we are bound not to say. But as marketers, we come up with other ways of saying it, right? I see a lot of smiles and nods heads. We've all danced that line before, haven't we? You know, at Okta, we weren't allowed to talk about a particular company, so we called them a large apparel company in the Northwest. The number of companies that can apply to is very small. We talk about this all the time. Because remember, that's our job, right? We also talk about our competitors. Even when we don't name them, we're constantly talking about them. We're responding to them. We're framing our messaging to counter their messaging. So if you kind of look at where the pieces aren't, you can make educated guesses on who the competitors are in each individual point. And we talk about our complements. Complements as in, who do we integrate with? Who do we sell well with? Who are our partnerships? And you know what? We probably tell our partners a lot of things we're not supposed to. Now, hopefully there's an NDA in place, but again, our partners talk. Our partners say things they probably shouldn't. Our customers say things they shouldn't. Our customers share data they shouldn't. We all have this information. So again, we have this wealth of information flowing around out there. We need to figure out how to get at it. We need to figure out how to organize. We need to figure out how to make it actionable. So when we think about what our job is, we think and we talk and we act outside our job constantly. Now, most of the things I've talked about so far probably happen in person. They probably happen via email. You know one other place that happened? LinkedIn. Who hasn't posted on LinkedIn today? Is there anybody? All right, we've got one. Well, you're on staff, so you're kind of busy. Almost everyone else has posted on LinkedIn. People post, here are the events we're at. Here's what we're presenting. They post booth pictures. They post, here's this project in progress. They post all these things. We share all this stuff because, well, that's, again, our job. This is what we call human intelligence. In the intelligence community, it's human intelligence. This is basically what people are saying, because people talk. People love talking about themselves. This is what happens. This is how basically a ton of information is shared, and a lot of secrets are leaked, regardless of what level you're talking about here. So let's explore what we can do with human intelligence. I'm going to use LinkedIn as my example for most of these. This is all available in a variety of different places, and this is 3 examples that I've found that have proven out over the last 15 years. I have a blog series that I started writing in 2007. When I wrote the initial one, it was kind of fun. One of my good friends from the intelligence community calls me up, and he's like, hey, I saw your blog post. I'm like, oh, cool, what'd you think of it? He's like, could you take that down? I'm like, oh, so I nailed it, huh? He's like, just do me a favor. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll take it down. And then they published a research paper on it 12 months later. So these are things that people actually can do. There's a lot of nefarious purposes or nefarious things you can use this for too. I will stay away from those in this venue. but they're on my blog, so definitely happy to talk about those anytime. So the 3 patterns we're going to talk about today are chain migration, network analysis, and how the past predicts the future. These are all things that you can look at, you can analyze, you can measure, and evaluate today from just about anyone's LinkedIn profile. First one is chain migration. So chain migration is a very simple concept of when somebody travels, they migrate from one country to another. Usually it's not the whole family that comes across at once. There's usually one person, the patriarch of the family, comes to the new country and sets up shop. They get a job, they start sending money back, and eventually they build enough of a place to live and some stability that then they send for their family. They bring their family over. And then they grow and they have some success, and then they bring more of the family over. It's a great thing. This is not commentary on immigration policy. This is how it works. And this pattern is held for 150 years. It's a thing that happens. As you have success, you bring more and more of your family into it. It turns out that happens at companies too. How many of you got your current job through a referral of somebody else that you worked with before? Right? Many of us. I'm at Ingrok entirely because Ben Sabrin, our chief revenue officer, was at Okta. We worked together for 2 years. He was going over to Ingrok. He's like, let me cherry pick some people. And he chose 20 of us from Okta. And this is being recorded, right? He totally did not recruit us during the non-solicitation period. I wasn't working there at the time anyway, so I was outside of it. But there was that opportunity of saying, fundamentally, we want to work with good people. We want to work with people who have proven themselves. So who better than people we've worked with before? This exact same thing happens. So most companies start with one person. There's one person who comes in probably at a senior level position, and they say, you know what? I am enjoying this company. It's good. There's a great vision going on here. Let me recruit some great people that I know. So then they start pulling in a couple others. And then all that entire group starts recruiting additional people they know. And now suddenly you end up with this whole pocket of people all at one company. So when you look at a company, you see one person move, and a few more move, and a few more move, you can start making some observations and some educated guesses about what they're doing next. When a bunch of identity and access management people move from Okta to Ingrok, a lot of people can go, oh, wait a minute, that's the OAuth team. There's the identity and access management team. There's the security and policy team. I wonder what they're doing next. And the cool thing is, I, being an insider at Okta, had that knowledge on who was there and who each person was and what their role was. But they put all that on LinkedIn too. The vast majority of us have posted, here's this article I wrote. Here's this customer deal I was involved in. Let me celebrate this win that we had. Or other people tagged us saying, hey, thanks for being a participant on this win that we had. It was great. Your design documents were fantastic. So you can start mapping out an organization. Now, you can't map out every single one of your competitors. I'm not recommending you do that because that would kill the largest competitive intelligence teams out there. But choose a couple and then start identifying what are the key indicators we want to see. What are the things that if somebody joins this team, what are we going to look for in terms of patterns? When a whole group of people move from company A to your competitor, that should be an indicator of people are doing something. What's going on here? How are we going to put this together? What new capabilities are they adding? So then we start thinking about the network analysis. The network analysis is another fun one. So when we think about how we network and who we network with, we generally don't just connect to random strangers, right? It would be weird. We just don't do that. Generally, we connect with people who we work with, who we've interacted with, who we've had some sort of positive experience with. So when we connect with people, we often connect with the new hires on our team. Makes a lot of sense. We want to make sure that we've got their contact information. After events, you probably connect with a bunch of people. We've traded contact information here. You're going to connect with a bunch of people. Meetings. This is where things start to get a little more interesting. When you're on that sales call, odds are there's contact information being exchanged. After all, you need to be able to follow up. And the vast majority of people will then send LinkedIn contacts to other people in the meeting. I was on a call with a very large bank yesterday, and I was watching our sales reps and their LinkedIn profiles. And sure enough, they all linked in with people from that meeting just a few hours earlier. Everyone does this. This is the kind of thing we can look and we can analyze and we can say, okay, who are these people connecting with? You know what, we're trying to get into this particular customer. Suddenly our competitor is linked to a bunch of their key people. Oh, wait a minute. Sounds like they have a lead. They have the inside track. That's something we should be aware of. Can we take action on that front? When people are interviewing, they often connect with the people they're interviewing. Sidebar, when somebody on your team suddenly has a bunch of new contacts at a new company, at one company, odds are they're interviewing there. Right? We've all done this. Because you set up that interview loop and then you start sending follow-ups and you start connecting with those people. So I'm not saying you take action other than saying, well, wait a minute, do we want to keep this person? What's wrong in this situation? So don't use that for nefarious purposes, use that for good and right purposes. So I pulled up my own LinkedIn profile this week. And this is just my most recent connections. Let's see, we discard the ones in the reddish pink. Those are coworkers, because we connect with coworkers, so that's a pretty reasonable thing. The yellow ones are acquaintances. Now, somebody outside looking at my profile wouldn't necessarily know that. So that's an interesting one, but isn't necessarily a key. But then we've got 3 in there. 2 are from, let's see, one's from a big bank, and 2 of them are from a product consultancy. But the point of it is just from my most recent LinkedIn connections, you can go ahead and you can say, okay, well, these are coworkers, exclude them. Who else is this person connecting to? How recently have they connected to? If it's just one-off from a given company, it may not be interesting. It could just be like, oh, hey, look, this is an acquaintance. If it's 3 from the same, now that starts to get interesting. If it's a senior level position, if it's a VP, okay, that starts to get really interesting. So understand, of your key competitors and their key staff, what are they doing? Who are they connecting to? You can start divining who they're actually meeting with in almost real time. Because odds are those LinkedIn invites are going out within 24 hours of that meeting. How useful is that? These are the kind of things that we can start looking at. Now, once we know who we're connecting with, I'm going to skip over that point because that's a little saucy for this venue. Actually, here, I'll just go back. So one of my friends started connecting with a bunch of single women. So I started saying, hey, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, no, it's nothing. And it's funny because within the next 3 months, he ended up dating 3 of the 4. And I was like, okay, cool. I see what you're using LinkedIn for. That's not its purpose. Cut it out. But anyway, the last pattern I want to talk about is how the past predicts the future. And this comes down to the people we're connecting with, the profiles that they have actually define probably what they're doing next. So when a company is growing a given department, the vast majority of people don't jump into an entirely new job. All of us that were in cybersecurity in some way, shape, or form, odds are our last job was related to cybersecurity too. And the odds of our next job being related to cybersecurity are actually pretty high. Because all of us get tied into an industry, into a particular niche, and we double down and triple down on it because we don't have to relearn the industry every single time. Even better, the things we created, the things we did in our last job probably helped us get this job. So think about the 3 most recent hires on your team. Did you hire them for things that they might do in the future? Or did you look at their portfolio and their accomplishments that they've accomplished recently and hire them based on that? Odds are you looked at the things they did recently and you said, oh, we need that too. Oh, we need something similar to that. We need this, but to a higher level. Or we need this set of skills applied to this new area. This works at every level we do it at. So when we're looking around at our competitors and we say, okay, they just hired a new head of sales. Okay, well, this new head of sales also brought on 3 salespeople from their previous organization. Okay, that's really interesting. That's a key player then. They're starting to recruit good people. They probably have a deep relationship. They understand each other. That means they're going to gel as a team that much faster because they're already a team. Okay, cool. Now, what areas did they focus in? Who did that sales rep sell to last time? Who were their individual customer accounts? Did they have a region? Did they have an industry? Because odds are they're going to want to leverage all those contacts exactly all over again. People don't like doing new things, right? We don't want to learn new industries. We want to go and double down in the ones we already have. We want to rework with the contacts that we've worked with before. We want to understand the exact same thing, we just want to do it again. So this ties into a little bit of human nature because fundamentally, we don't like change. It turns out, because we don't like change, we can go ahead and we can analyze this and make some very clear deductions about what's going on across the board. So those are our top 3 patterns. There's a ton of other patterns we can get into when we looked at LinkedIn and the data behind it. So I'd say the initial conclusion is LinkedIn is gold. And actually, I'd say any real public social networking is gold, because odds are the things you're putting on LinkedIn, there's similar things on Twitter, there's similar things on the book list you read, all those sorts of things. The places that you're putting this information are all over the place. And there's very few people that are actually filtering this to make sure that anyone's staying on story or not leaking sensitive information. Just the way we live our lives, we're putting a lot of information out there. So a couple quick closing thoughts. This maps very closely to the intelligence community's intelligence cycle. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same concepts. Granted, we're applying it for a little different area. But really, I'd say as product marketing as a whole, our job is to know our ecosystem. We need to understand our industry, our competitors, our comparators, who our customers are, all that across the board. But I'd say if we can go one level deeper, every ecosystem is made out of people. And if we understand the people and what they do, what motivates them, where they came from, what they want to do next, we're going to know the ecosystem that much better. So thank you, and I'm Keith Casey.
We had a few questions. Have you guys learned nothing in 2 days of me yelling you guys to hold the clap? It's okay, you guys are excited. I'm not angry, I'm not disappointed. But let's do some questions, because there were a few. I'm gonna consolidate these into one. So, loved the presentation. It feels like it was this is a fun word in air quotes, digital stalking. We like that. We ain't always got time to do digital stalking.
Yes.
Any tools that you can recommend? Like as PMMs, we have so many tools that we use, but we like to automate not only our time, but like we're starting competitive intel. What can we leverage if we don't have time to creep on what people are doing on LinkedIn?
Yes, it can very easily look like digital stalking. There's some fascinating things you can do with the data behind the scenes. That's a whole other conversation we'll have over drinks. What we've started doing is building modules on top of HubSpot to be able to pull that information together, to be able to group saying, okay, at this organization, who have we interacted with here? Who do we know about here who came from this organization? And to start building that sort of analysis.
Is that your vendor's capability, or like, do you have like a fun resource on your team who's like a secret developer underground and is building this for you? Like, what's this?
Right now, we're doing it ourselves. So in Grok, out of the 75 of us, probably 60 of us have been developers at some point in our lives. We're recovering, don't worry. But we've been able to build some of this stuff ourselves. Granted, most of this information is available. So if you have a dedicated marketing ops person that can get into some of this, they can pull this data and do it. It's going to take understanding like what the patterns are you're looking for, but these are 3 that can apply.
Yeah, that.